means that x is going to be between 1 and 4. Inclusively means we have the equal. So 1 is smaller than my value, and my value is smaller than 4. And equals is going to be because it's inclusive. So I keep the x is less than or equal to 4 because x is first. Then for my other one, I flip it. So x is going to be greater than or equal to 1. Because when I keep this one, and then when I flip that one, my sign is going to flip as well. So for this one, it's going to be this, which is a plain out binomial CDF. So for the first one, I am going to use this rule. So it's going to be a binomial CDF of N, P, not that P, N, P, and X. Then I go to the second one, and it is a greater than or equal to, which means I am going to take 1 away, so that's going to become a 0. And remember, I do not do the -1 because it is a between. So I'm not going to do the -1. I'm just going to do a minus because the other pretends like it's my 1. So I'm going to do a binomial CDF of N, P, and X, which is 0 because I came down. Subtracted that 1. So when I subtract those two and put that whole thing in my calculator, I should have gotten 0.6389. Cool? All right. One more of this one. Not one more to be done, but one more of this one. Would it be unusual to find 4 or more patients? So we still have our N equal 20. We still have our P equal 0.05. Would it be unusual to find 4 or more patients? Four or more is what symbol? Greater than or equal to. So we are doing this one, which means we are going to subtract 1 from our x, and we're going to do a binomial CDF of N, C, and X. And when I 1 minus the binomial of N, C, and X. And is it going to be unusual? It's less than 0.05. So it's unlikely to happen. All right. Now we have different numbers. 80% of the time, flights are on time. Suppose 100 flights are randomly selected. Compute the mean and the standard deviation. Mean and standard deviation. What does this represent? What letter?
That's on P.
That's our P. We got to whoop whoop it. What is this?
N.
Our N. Do we remember our formulas for mean and standard deviation?
N times P was
N
mean.
times P is your mean. And your standard deviation? Square root of something. Your mean is N times P. Your standard deviation is the square root of N times P, parentheses 1 minus E. So, for our mean, what is our N? 100. What is our P? 0.8 or 0.80. So my mean is going to be, is it 80?
Yes.
Yes. That is our mean. And then for my standard deviation, it is going to be 100 times 0.80 times 1 minus 0.80, or you can say 80 times 0.20, however you want to write it, does not matter to me. I got this 80 because that's the answer of my NP. And this is my failures. So if it's 80% of the time successes, it's 20% of the time failures. And if I go to my calculator and do either one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do the square root of 100 times 0.80 times parentheses 1 minus 0.80. Is that what y'all got?
Yeah.
And that's what I got too. That's going to be my standard deviation. All right, this last one, I'm just going to come down here and we're going to talk about it. I'm just going to take this one out because I've got it written all together. Select all, move it all. I think we've done a gazillion of these. All right, this problem says compute the mean and standard deviation. American Lung Association, 90%. So 90 is my P, so if 90% are successful, not that you're successful if you have lung, whatever, but 90%, so 10% is going to be my failure. Compute the mean and standard deviation. So, right here, my mean is my 200 times the 0.90. My standard deviation, let me click off of it so you can see it. Or maybe not. What is my little rookie not here? Oh, there we go. So, that was my mean. 200 people times the 90%. My standard deviation, NP, 1 minus P. So 200 times the 0.90. Instead of doing 1 minus the 0.90, we just said that if our success is 0.90, then our failures is 0.10. When you type that in, that gives me a standard deviation of 4.24. We good? Now, part B, interpret the mean. We've already said that if you have that normal distribution, your mean is going to be in the middle of the bell-shaped curve. Would it be unusual to observe 185 smokers who started smoking before 21 years in a random sample of 200 smokers? So, for part C, they drew the normal shaped curve. They put 180 in the middle because that's your mean. Your mean goes in the middle. And then, how much are we going to jump at a time? 4.24, because that's your standard deviation. So off the 180, we jumped 4.24 at a time. So 4.24, 4.24, 4.24 off of the 180. So if we want to be at 185 is right there. It is within my 2 standard deviations, which means it's usual. It's going to it's normal. It's not in that little bit of tail space. So I jumped in increments, if I declare I haven't used, I jumped in increments of those 4.24, and I jumped off of the mean. And right here is my 185, and because it's within 2 standard deviations, that's what's telling me it's normal. It's okay. It's not unusual. It's usual. Does that make sense? All right, so that finishes up 6.2, but there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about. I must really love y'all because I just went out today and I took y'all's review sheet. And y'all better be using this. Hold on. I took your review sheet because I think some of you are not studying the way that you need to be studying for the test. So, I took this review sheet. Even though I told you what you need to be doing, I don't think some of you are doing what you need to be doing. These are the problems you need to be studying. Page 257, number 7 through 10. Page 258, number 11 and 12. Page 248, there's a definition you need to know. Page 258, these numbers. Okay, this is what you need to be studying. These are what's on the test. You don't need to study old homework. You don't need to watch old video. These are what's on the test. Okay, so came into work early this morning, sat at my computer, and I pulled up the electronic textbook. I took my little snipping tool, and in my electronic textbook, I went to page 257, and I snipped problems 7 through 10 and sucked them on a piece of notebook paper, electronic notebook paper. Then I went to page 258, and I sucked over problems 11 and 12. Then I went to page 248, and I sucked over the definition of sample space. Then I went to page 258, and I sucked over 27 through 30. Then I went to this page and sucked over just parts A and B for 40 to 43. Okay? So, this entire thing, and I ain't going to do it for no other test, but this is just to show you what you need to be doing, because these probability problems, you just need to practice them. So, where is it? Right here. So number 1 said, go back to page 257, problems 7 through 10. So this is literally in your book, electronic book through D2L, page 257, and I sucked over problems 7, 8, 9, 10. And then, right under that, number 2 off of your spreadsheet says go to page 258 and look at problems 11 and 12. Go to page 248 and know the definition of a sample space. Go to page 258 and know the problems 27 through 30. And it didn't say what parts, so I pulled all parts. Go to page 271 and know parts A, B, and let me show you what it did. This one said no 40 to 43 A and B, and this said no 40 to 43 D. So I went ahead and combined those and pulled A, B, and D so that you would get both of them. So I pulled A, B, and D, and I marked out C because you don't need to know C for the test. Okay? So I have, I think it's 14 pages of problems. You know how many different codes, social security numbers, and some of them are super easy. So even though you have 8 problems to study, that's 1 problem on your test. And then down here, you have 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, you've got 5 problems, but that's one problem on your test. Okay? And some of them, like I said, are super easy, and some of them you're going to go, oh, I know how to do that, I don't need to look back at that. And then there's some that you're going to say, hey, I really need some help with these. Okay? So this is going to be something that, and you're not going to want to study them in order. I did them in order just because I was going by the spreadsheet. It's not going to be something like these. Tell me if it's discrete or continuous. You're probably not going to have trouble with those. So I have some easy ones in there, and then I have some hard ones in there. This is probably not going to be hard to you. Tell me if it's a discrete probability distribution. What are the 2 things you're looking for? Does it equal 1 and
Everything's between 0
everything's
and 1.
between 0 and 1. So I gave you a bunch to look at. Does it mean you have to do every one? No. Now, I didn't give you the answers. So here's what you have to do for the answers. Out here in D2L world, you have the unit test review, which is where I pulled your unit review. This is where I pulled your unit review. That's the spreadsheet. Okay? Up underneath the spreadsheet is the answer key to the book. It's like turn to the back of the book, check the answers. So, part of your test is chapter 5 and part of your test is chapter 6. So if you want the answers, you click on Unit Test Review, Chapter 5, and this is the answers from the back of the book. So if it's a 5.1 problem, you look up and just check your answers. It's a 5.2 problem, check your answers. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a question about something that I saw on that I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Can you go to the top?
I can go to the top of this one.
It was where the permutations, that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remembered whenever I saw this, but I don't remember all the way. So these permutation things on 1 through 18, that's something that we just put.
You put, like, for number 12,
Yeah.
you would do 7, then you would hit the math button, go over to probability, number 2, and then hit 2, enter.
That's right. Because that was about permutation and
combinations.
combination. Okay.
Mhm.
Because I don't like the formula sheet. I have a
And
hard
there's
time
not-
reading it.
Yeah, and there's not much on the formula sheet that
we
we've
use.
used.
I know, but it's overwhelming when
It
you look
is.
at it.
It is. So, print these 14 pages out and work on them, and if there's things off the formula sheet or things that you need to memorize or whatever, the only thing that you had 2 of, every one of these little sections, so like when I put a page, that's one problem on the test. When I put a page, that's one problem on the test. The only thing that I double dipped was these 2 I put together, so those 2 represent 2 problems on your test. And then right here, which is 6.2, I double dipped those because it was the same thing twice and I wasn't going to list the same questions twice. So everything else, every time you see a section, it's one problem. Except for right here, the next to the last set of questions, that's 2 problems. And then the ABD, that's 2 problems. Everything else is just going to be 1 question per section. And there's 2 definitions, or 3 definitions. One, you have to know what a sample space is. Sample space is like if I said, what's the sample space for cards in a deck? That's all the different possible cards in a deck, which is 52. Definition for disjoint events. Do disjoint events have things in common? They're disjoint. They have nothing in common. They have nothing to do with each other. And then you have another one that says identify the notation used in probability distribution, which means you need to know what the N means, the P means, the P minus 1 means, and the X means, which are those things that we did today. So if I say what do successes mean, you're going to say P. If I says what do failures mean, you're going to say 1 minus P. Are we good? Now, where do you want me to post this?
Maybe where that is.
You want me to post it where that is? Okay. So what I will do, and like I said, I'm not going to do this for every chapter, but I want you to, so let me save it, and then I will go out, and I also will probably try to email it to you. I'll try to see if it'll let me post it right up underneath this. And I'll also try to email you that with this so that you can see what units they're in, and it's 14 pages so that I could try to spread it out. But that way you can see, and that will give you all the problems in one. But number one, get through with your homework. Get your hundreds on your homework. I give you some devil problems. I give you some easy problems. Go to the tutors and just say, I just need help getting through the homework. Just get through the homework. Whether you truly understand it or not, just get through the homework. You need to truly understand these 14 pages that I gave you. That's what's going to be on the test. Make sure you know those rules that we did today. The less than, the equal to, less than equal to. Is it 1 minus, or is it x minus 1, or is it whatever? Okay? When we come back, now I won't be able to aggravate you over the break, and I won't be able to answer questions over the break. I will be out of the country. So I can't text you and remind you and stay on top of you. I won't be back until right before we come back to school. So homework will be due the Tuesday we get back. Test will be due the Wednesday we get back. But when we get back on that Monday, we're starting chapter 7. Are we good? I will have notes and videos posted before I leave so that y'all will have that as well. Okay? All right, we are done today. Woo!